Hi, this is Timothy Zahn, author of Thrawn, and you're listening to Star Wars Reactions. Good for you.
There's been an awakening. Have you felt it?
In 1977, George Lucas formed a legacy.
The Force is with me, and I am with the Force.
Inspired by mythology, his saga has become a passion for many.
Feel the Force around you.
His legend has become our story.
It's true. All of it.
One of resistance.
We are the spark that'll light the fire that'll burn the First Order down.
Rebellion.
Rebellion is built on hope.
And redemption.
I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
This is Star Wars Reactions.
Remember, the Force will be with you. Always.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to Star Wars Reactions. Oh, what a show. What a show we're going to have. We got so much to talk about when it comes to the finale of Ahsoka. So let's get the introductions out of the way and get the ball rolling. My name is Aaron Harris, and joining me is the man, the myth, the legend, the David Motters. David, brother, how you doing?
I am doing great. I'm super excited to record tonight and ready to react. And I'm just so thankful that we have a returning guest and friend and sister in the Force with us.
Oh, absolutely. I'm excited for that too. And as David alluded to, we are joined by our sister in the Force from the land down under, Christina Stevenson, making her return to Reactions to help us close out the Ahsoka series. Christina, welcome back.
Thank you so much, Aaron. Thank you, David. It's so amazing to be back. I'm so glad that I can sit down and discuss this episode with you because, oh my, isn't there a lot to discuss?
Is there ever? There is a lot to be discussed and a lot we're going to be discussing. So this is going to be a jam-packed show. So let's get it going. We're discussing the 8th and final episode of Ahsoka. This episode was entitled The Jedi, the Witch, and the Warlord. Released on October 3rd of 2023, written by Dave Filoni for Universal Dictator, President, whatever he wants to be, he is it. Directed by the guy whose name I always mess up, Rick
Famuyiwa.
That's it. I never can get it right. You know, you figure after directing a fabulous finale like this, I'd be able to say his name right, but I still can't. Brief Disney Plus synopsis: the heroes race to prevent Grand Admiral Thrawn's escape. So let's kick off our discussion with our initial reactions like we always do. Christina, you're our guest. Floor is yours. What were your initial reactions to this finale episode?
Oh, overall, I thought it was amazing. I think every week when I watch this show, I keep thinking it can't possibly be better than the last episode. And every single week it is. And I don't think this finale was any different. It was amazing. Right from the very first moment with that opening scene of the Chimera over that, Night Sister temple, it just looked spectacular. And I was drawn in, you're drawn in straight away. Sitting there, I was watching it with Kendra, and we were exclaiming. Every action sequence, every tender moment, there was just so much. Right from, the opening, you have that intense sort of leveling up of Morgan Elspeth with the Night Sister magic. And I'm sure we'll have to talk about the Sword of Talzin. Then we move along straight away through to Ezra making a new lightsaber, and the exposition of Hu Yang. We get caught up on so much information in such a short period of time, and then we're straight into the action of this episode, which all looks spectacular. But just one of the visuals that really struck me was when Ahsoka, Ezra, and Sabine were assaulting the Night Sister Temple, and they're there ready to face the night troopers, and all three of them have their lightsabers drawn, with the Ahsoka with her double white blades, then with the blue and the green in the background. It just looked phenomenal. And you just move through it just moves so quickly through each of the action sequences. The tension is there the whole time, and then the ending, it just leaves us with so many more questions rather than answers.
Oh, that it definitely does. That's Dave Filoni for you, though. I mean, he is the master of giving you closure and leaving you hanging at the same time.
And this episode does that perfectly. And like, one of the things, I watched it again the second time just this morning when I first got up, so that it would all be fresh in my mind before we recorded. And just every first time I watched it, I was just so engrossed. You don't really have time to process, you're just along for the ride. But this time it's just like every single line is not wasted. There is no line that doesn't have some deeper meaning.
Mm-hmm. Well said. It is so true with everything that we saw in that episode. David, how about you, brother? What are your initial reactions to watching this?
Yeah, I'm so thankful Christina went first, because I wanted to just mirror, piggyback, or say ditto what Christina said. I say that because I'm so impressed by what Dave Filoni delivered. When Jon Favreau, before the series started, he says, this is Dave Filoni's magnum opus. And that's quite a statement, right? And when you look at this, every episode, I think I mentioned it an episode or two ago, I was like, what are they going to do to top episode 5 that they put in theaters? And just like Christina said, each one got better, because it was 6. Here they come with, Thrawn and Ezra. Episode 7, we covered it last week, was outstanding. And this one, what a finale. I think about, like what both of you said, how a lot of things got answered, but then even more questions with a lot of these things that we saw happen and go down. One of the things I've said many times on Star Wars Reactions is, when a series like the first season or second season ends, you always ask yourself, well, are you wanting more? And for me, it's, oh my God, unequivocally, I'm ready for season 2, or, if this goes directly into a movie, that would just be, incredible as well. But to deliver week after week, just like Christina says, that's easy to say, but it's hard to do. And Dave Filoni did deliver a better episode each time. And I'm so impressed with what he did and the look of this. And I want to say this, it really does look cinematic. I've mentioned, just real quick, and then we can move on to some other talking points. And I know Christina knows this too, but Aaron and I have talked several times about how you start, this is me, I started looking for, wait, are they using, the volume? Where is it? Where does the set end? And where does that screen start? And I don't know how they did it, but, Filoni and Rob Bretto there at ILM, and Hal Hickel and all those people that are at ILM, we're like, no, we're not going to have you guys seeing that anymore. And so it just looks so cinematic, like it could be, all of these could be movies, and not some of the stuff we've seen in some previous, like even Book of Boba Fett and even Mando season 3. I could definitely tell the volume. Here it was like, wow. And so maybe it was the case, Aaron and Christine, it was because it was the first maybe full series not maybe hindered by COVID, perhaps. That, and right, guys, and maybe because the money spent on it. So, anyways, I just so impressed. Dave Filoni delivered, and he did it.
Oh well, yeah, he definitely did, and I think it being post-COVID, I think helped, but being that this was Dave's show, I think helped even more. Dave has earned a respect and admiration and love by everybody at Lucasfilm. That's the only person that matched it has been the creator himself, George Lucas. He is as revered as George is around that place. So to have this be his show, his baby, they all stood up and put forward not only their best effort, but beyond their best efforts to make this even more special for Dave. As for me, I don't even know where to begin with my initial thoughts, initial reactions, because I mean, this was just, it was fantastic. It was beautiful. This series has left me speechless more times than I imagined it would. And the finale was no exception. It was just simply incredible, in my opinion. It's very rare for me to stand and watch TV, but I was literally on my feet the entire time watching this episode. It was just incredible. I was smiling through the whole thing. Then I got emotional more than once. I shed some tears at a couple moments. I mean, it was fabulous. It was fabulous. I have to say, out of the entire series that we've seen, which the whole series was fabulous, don't get me wrong, but this episode was Kevin Kiner's finest. Out of all the soundtracks he wrote for this series, which were all spectacular, his finest work was in this episode, hands down, on the soundtrack. I mean, seeing everything we did, Ezra building his new lightsaber, seeing Ezra and Sabine ribbit each other again. Oh, that was so much fun. Ahsoka just, battling it out with Morgan the sister Morgan Elsbeth, who was wielding the Sword of Talzin, and then of course just simply Thrawn being Thrawn, and his little speech right there before he makes his escape. But it was perfect. And then of course Mortis, did not see that coming. I mean, it just doesn't get much better than what we just witnessed with this finale and with this series as a whole. I mean, I gotta say, this was probably Disney's finest hour, for sure. With this series, this is something that not only Lucasfilm should be proud of. This is something Disney should be proud of. Bob Iger should be worshiping at the feet of Dave Filoni right now. Dave Filoni for whatever title he wants. So, well, let's move into some of our talking points, because we have a lot here to discuss. And we want to just get going. Let's talk about, let's talk about Ezra and his lightsaber, because we know they're on a mission. They have to stop Thrawn. And of course, we see him toiling away on the ship with Huang, and basically saying, the sooner I get done, sooner we can get this mission done. And we have some very deep and actually some very touching dialogue throughout this scene, where Huang is discussing all the lightsabers he helped build. We had him discussing even Kanan Jarrus, Caleb Doom, Ezra's master. Then of course we end up with the discussion between Huang and Ezra about what really happened with Sabine and Ahsoka. I almost said Hera for a moment. But it was a fantastic scene. Let's start with the lightsaber, and seeing him build that, 'cause that was really fun to see, and especially when he gets a part of that was identical to Kanan's, was perfect. David, let's start with you, brother. Talk to me about the lightsaber construction scene.
Oh my gosh, we have hours. Christina and I can go for hours on this, I'm sure.
Go right ahead.
Well, this was so cool, and if Christina remembers this, and I've talked to you, Aaron, about the question: should people watch Rebels, and now we should say Clone Wars, before this, and I keep in my mind saying, if you're anybody, I guess you could sit down, enjoy this, and be like, "Ooh, wow! These are some pretty cool characters. I'm not sure why he's blue or why she's green, Hera, but apparently, they're pretty cool people, and there's a lot of action and laser fire and laser swords and all that." But here's an example of, for the three of us, and for our listeners, and for Star Wars fans, when he mentions Kanan and how, I kept this, I had 2 of these and I kept another one just in case he needed it. Well, here's an example, Aaron, when you mentioned you teared up, I just kind of started tearing up sitting there. Now, if you haven't watched Rebels and you don't know who Kanan is and the sacrifice he made and all of that, then you'd be like, oh, okay, I guess it's cool. I guess Ezra trained under Kanan, and now he's got a lightsaber part pretty similar to his. Okay, cool. But for us, it's so much more meaningful and it's richer. So I love that. And I love how it does lead into what Christina mentioned, which is watching the show a second time last night, just taking the subtitles off, just looking at the visuals. Completely agree with Christina. That scene of Ahsoka with 2 lightsabers, the white ones, Ezra with a blue one now, and Sabine with the green one. Loved it. And it starts here with this scene. And the other thing that this brought in for me was, particularly because of a comment by Ahsoka later in this episode, I kept thinking, oh, this is Ahsoka's ship. And I'm like, no, it's not, is it? It's his. It's a Huyang's, and right. And he used this with the younglings in the young Jedi arc, right? And because I think what really hit me, Christina and Aaron, was when Ezra goes over and starts opening up all those things. I'm like, wait. And then we see Huyang. I'm like, he did that in that episode. I'm like, wait. Oh my gosh. Yes, of course. This is the same ship from that. Okay. It's all coming together here. And so it just, a lot of those aha and just smiles and tears. And I'll shut up and let Christina go because I can keep going. What do you think, Christina?
Oh, basically everything you've just said, exactly what I think. But, it's just, I was actually talking with a couple of guys at work, separate sort of incidences. When I'm in theatre, it's very obvious I'm a Star Wars fan. I've got my Star Wars scrub cap on. I've got my Star Wars scrubs on. People know. So it's a conversation starter for other people that are Star Wars fans. So I was talking with this young guy, and this is just a little aside, but he grew up in the Clone Wars era. So for him, his Star Wars is the Clone Wars animated series. And he was talking about how much the episode Shadow Warrior affected him, seeing Clone Wars in live action, seeing all of that displayed. And it's the same here, because now we're seeing more Clone Wars in live action. Huyang's ship, lightsaber building, all of these things that we haven't seen in live action, we've only seen either in animation or in the games. We're now getting to witness, but also experience with a bigger Star Wars audience, which I just think is fantastic. And then I was talking to this other guy who has only watched the movies and live action series. He's never watched any of the animated stuff. And so he's like, oh yeah, Ahsoka's pretty good, but like, I just don't really understand who this blue guy is, and like, who's Ezra? And I mean, like, it all seems pretty good, but I just don't really know what's going on. So I think it actually, and I'm pretty sure I've convinced him to go and watch Clone Wars and Rebels now. I think it just goes to show what you were saying is that if you've seen the animated series, we have that deeper understanding of what all of these little interactions, all of the deeper meaning to the dialogue has. And it does affect us. The minute I heard Kanan's name mentioned, you just have that, like, it catches your breath, because for us, it's a grief. We spent 4 years with him. We grew with him. We grew with his relationship with Ezra. And to hear him and his name to just be said quite, openly in live action, you just get that little catch, that little grief, that just so emotion filled. And then to hear Hu Yang go, Caleb, and then to talk about his memories of Caleb Doom rather than Kanan Jarrus, as a shy young man. And I think I'd add not just Clone Wars and Rebels to watch, but also Bad Batch, because I think, obviously we get little Caleb in Bad Batch.
Yep.
Yes,
we definitely do.
Yes,
we definitely do. And you're right. A lot. And I actually had this conversation with my old supervisor at work Tuesday morning before this episode aired, and we were talking, and we were discussing because obviously I love this show, and we were discussing why, and he's a huge Star Wars fan too. Hi, Jared. I know you're listening. And we were discussing he's almost like he's like, it's almost like you got a little bit of beer goggles on when it comes to watching the show. He goes, it's a great show, but you're just like over the top with it. And I'm like, I am. And David and I have talked about this. Do I love the series for it being the series, or do I love the series because it's continuing the Rebel story? And it's, the answer is simply yes. Yes, I love it for both of those reasons. And this episode proved that to me, because I loved the story we were getting. I loved the action. I loved the fighting. I loved seeing not just Ahsoka and the Rebels characters, but I loved seeing what they were doing with Morgan Elsbeth. I'm absolutely in love with what they're doing with Baylan Skoll. But then again, go back to this lightsaber scene, and when when Hu Wang goes ruffling around in that box and comes out with that lightsaber piece, and I see what it is, I sat there and went, Kanan.
I know. I think we all had that. It was so true.
And it takes me right back to the series premiere of Rebels. When they're hiding behind the crates, pinned down by stormtroopers, rescuing the Wookiees, and you hear Kanan go, I'm about to let everybody know the secret. On the secret.
Absolutely.
And he steps out, and then he puts the lightsaber together by attaching that piece to the hilt to complete his saber. And then and that's the first time we get to see him as Jedi.
As a Jedi, yeah.
Kanan. And I took me right back to that, and it just, it was a wreck. I had to pause it for a little bit to recompose myself before I kept going. But it was just a fabulous scene. And it was nice too to see Carabast, Ezra actually assembling the lightsaber. Because again, to me, it takes me right back to that deleted scene from Return of the Jedi, where Luke is in the cave on Tatooine assembling his new lightsaber before going and rescuing Han. So just some nice nods through that scene all over the place. But then we get the backstory from Hu Wang about Sabine and Ahsoka. And that's when we find out that this rift between the two that we've been seeing throughout this whole series was caused because Hera was afraid. Gosh, Carabast. Ahsoka was afraid that Sabine was training to be a Jedi for the wrong reasons. And it could be dangerous. So let's talk about that, because that's a huge plot item that we've been watching throughout this whole series that finally got explained. David, take it away, brother. Talk to me about this, about her being dangerous to train.
Well, we just talked about it, these callbacks and homages and stuff. Ahsoka is probably looking at Sabine and seeing that, well, her family was just killed. I guess, Christina or Aaron, you tell me if I have the timeline right, in the Night of 1,000 Tears, right, from Moff Gideon. Okay, so right, the planet is leveled, and I think Huang's talking about that, and so you just wonder if what it is fear, right? We hear Yoda talk about it. I'm talking about it every day in my professional career in the form of anxiety in my clients. But fear, I could imagine, was a big part of this, and Ahsoka being like, well, I just saw someone incredibly powerful, whose mother is killed, in essence, and we see what ends up happening to him. The whole universe is turned upside down. The Empire takes over, and so on. And you wonder if Ahsoka's looking at Sabine. And I think, again, you two help me out. I think Huang says something about unlocking this incredible potential within Sabine.
Yeah.
That right, Christina and Aaron, that we saw hinted at in Rebels, right? Some of her skill, and
That's right.
and oh my God, her jumping ability and just like all the stuff she can do in Rebels. And so I think Ahsoka's looking at that and going, oh my goodness, her parents have been killed. And, what will she go down the path that perhaps, Anakin did? And so those are kind of just some of my initial thoughts on that. What about you, Christina?
Yeah, I agree. And I also think, it definitely, tells us that Ahsoka stopped training Sabine. Ahsoka left Sabine because she didn't want to train a powerful being who would potentially become another Dark Jedi. She didn't want another Anakin come Vader in the universe. But I also think it's a little bit of what Qui-Gon sort of says, your focus determines your reality. Well, at that moment, Sabine's focus was her grief and probably her rage over the loss of her family and the loss of Mandalore and everything that she had fought so hard for, that we saw them fight for in Rebels, with them being on Mandalore in some of those early season 4 episodes, wasn't it? So we get that, we've got that backstory too. And so if Sabine is training with her focus being revenge or anger, then that might become her reality. So I think that it wasn't an unjustified fear on Ahsoka's part, and that potentially Sabine did need time.
Very good. Very good. I kept going back to Yoda. Fear is the path to the dark side. Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering. And obviously those were words that, Ahsoka probably heard at the temple before everything went down. So she saw that in Sabine, knowing that, because she was, when she lost her family, she was still mourning the loss of Ezra.
Yeah.
So she's seeing him go down the same path Anakin went down. Anakin lost his mother. Anakin lost Ahsoka. Then Anakin lost everything. Sabine lost Ezra. Sabine lost everything. So there's almost a mirror path that they're going on, and I love how you said that. Y'all said that, they determine their own reality, and if things just led her down a path. And I think having that break helped her work through some things, and even when they got back together at the beginning of the series, you see that struggle is still there. There's still some bitterness from Sabine for walking, towards Ahsoka for walking away. But by the time it's all said and done, and by the end of the series, we see a tremendous, and that's one thing I love about these shows. We see the growth of Sabine and the growth of Ahsoka, because Ahsoka made the statement, "I'm not going to leave you again." And Sabine, when she had the chance to escape and flee with Ezra to get home, she made the decision not to leave Ahsoka.
Yeah, I love that bit. It was so good.
So I think that all connects and just it flows perfectly. And I'm glad they told us this story now instead of earlier, because it just made everything flow so much more intense through this episode.
Mm-hmm.
So fantastic. So, I mean, that's even when, because I love how Ahsoka, I mean, we're talking about this, and I love how Ahsoka, even when she's talking about Anakin, made the statement, he stood with me. He always stood with me, even when no one else did.
I know, that was so powerful. And you just, when she said that, what came to me was, obviously at the Clone Wars, when he lets her leave so that she can try and prove her innocence.
Well, and not even that, even after her innocence has been proven.
Yeah, I try never to think about that bit.
Walk away from the order. Well,
makes me cry every time.
Oh, it does. It's one of the top 5 most moving scenes in all of the saga, easily, hands down. That with Kanan's death, and so don't get me going. That jot that down. That'll make a great episode one time. Top 5 emotional moments in Star Wars.
Yeah.
Just get your box of tissues for that one. Jot that down. We'll need to do that one, David.
You'll have to have me on for that one.
I'm already thinking about all the tearing up moments in this one, like you said, when she had a chance to leave Sabine, she doesn't, and then she shows up and Ahsoka is in a bad way, and she helps her out, and I tear up there. Oh my gosh. Yeah. And when they're on the ship just floating, and she does, and I put this in the show notes, the quote, "He always stood by me even when no one else did." We all need a person like that, or even plural. We need people like that, and having friends like that, and family members. It really means a lot, because the world will beat you down, and it's something I've really been talking about with my son a lot. And my daughter too, is the world will beat you down in different ways if you're a male and a female, but to have people who stand by you is huge. So when Ahsoka said that, I teared up. Oh my goodness. I'm just, Christina, one of the things, you might have heard it on other episodes, like I lose quite a bit of water weight during these shows. So, I drop about 5 pounds in water just from crying. And, right. I'm always saying to Aaron, "I'm not crying, you're crying." He's like, "Oh, Dave,
I told you I'm crying. Just admit it." Oh my word!
Admit it.
We got so much more to talk about, and that's going to go on. So let's take a quick break. When we come back, we'll continue our discussion of the Jedi, the Witch, and the Warlord. Welcome back, everybody. Aaron and David, and our guest, our friend, our pal, Christina, is joining us for our discussion of the finale of Ahsoka. Of course, we were discussing everything that happened with Ahsoka and Sabine and Ezra before we took our break. Let's shift gears a bit and let's talk Imperials. Let's talk our baddies. So we see a lot happen in this to both the good and the bad. And one of the biggest things that we see is the transformation of Morgan Elsbeth, where she is, of course, we know she's a descendant of the Night Sisters, but they never really called her sister or anything throughout the series till right here at the end, when they make her almost like another mother, full-fledged sister, and then they arm her with the blade of Talzin. And if that sounds familiar to you, you probably are a Clone Wars fan and know who Mother Talzin is. And she's not somebody to be trifled with. So that really changed the game when it came to the Night Sisters, because this is when we really started seeing the Night Sister magic that we saw throughout the Clone Wars and throughout Rebels. We see a lot more of the green mist magic. We see, of course, the Sword of Talzin, but then, of course, we see the dead troopers coming back to life as basically night trooper zombies. It was Night of the Living Night Trooper throughout the episode, and it was quite fun to relive those moments with the Night Sisters and via Morgan Elsbeth. So let's talk about that. Christina, we'll start with you. Talk to me about the Night Sisters, Morgan Elsbeth's transformation, and everything we saw with the Great Mothers.
Yeah, that was so impressive. One of the things I've always loved about Clone Wars and to a lesser extent Rebels, but is that you get to see how other civilizations, other people from other planets interact with the Force differently to the Jedi. So what this, and especially the Sword of Talzin, what that brought back to me was the Clone Wars arc in season 6, you know, the Mace Windu and Jar Jar Binks team up, where they go to the Bardotans and they help them, but it's actually all Mother Talzin trying to steal life essence or the living force from people. And so that's when we actually get our first mention and vision of the Sword of Talzin, because she generates it to fight Mace Windu. So as soon as I saw the, Morgan Elsbeth being kind of leveled up to a full Night Sister, almost mother status, with her increase in power and being sort of gifted that Sword of Talzin that we had seen previously. So we know that it can be used to fight lightsabers. I just thought that whole scene, not only was it sort of visually spectacular, but it also gave us more insight into other uses of the Force and how other people interact with the Force differently.
Well, I was going to jump in too, and just I think what this got me thinking about was and we're again talking about the Imperials, talking about Thrawn, talking about Morgan Elsbeth and all them is you really I started just, again, there's so much to take in from every one of these episodes, and I think I've had a chance to kind of breathe a little bit here over the last couple of days. Clearly Thrawn, when we go back to Rebels, like Christina went back to Clone Wars there, and I remember Mother Talzin battling Mace with that sword, and then I'm going back to Rebels where we see Thrawn thwarted by the Bendu, right? And at the end of one of the season finale, I think the 3rd season, and then in the 4th season, of course, we see the Purgo, right? Ezra with the Purgo. And almost like what you see happening here with this, Night Sister, Great Mother magic is Thrawn saying, if you can't beat them, join them. And literally, right, saying, hey, I need your help, Great Mothers. And, whether it's them turning Morgan Elsbeth into a sister who then delays Ahsoka, Sabine, and so on, or reanimating these troopers, you can see that Thrawn has really embraced it, because I think he really realizes he can't beat them with just his straight military tactics. Of course, he's had a dwindled number of troopers in there as well. But that's kind of what I was thinking about, is really this change in tactics that we see Thrawn, doing here. And I think it's really cool. It's him adjusting. It's him adapting.
But I don't think that it's him really changing his tactics. I think it's him being like the master chess player, and these are just new chess pieces on the board that he hadn't realized existed, and he's figuring out how he can make them work for his ultimate end game. So I actually just think it's Thrawn being Thrawn, just finally realizing that maybe I can use this instead of ignore it.
Yes.
Oh, that's well said, because Thrawn has always been the master chess player. He always is 5 steps ahead, and he proved that, like with how he treated and foresaw Ahsoka's decisions by just figuring, as soon as he learned that she was the Padawan of Anakin, his whole game changed. If you noticed.
Yes.
It wasn't the simple traps. It wasn't the simple hunt them down and kill them. It became we need to outmaneuver her at this point, because this is what she's going to do. How does he know it? Because he knows Anakin. He worked with Anakin. This is one of those things where it's not in Rebels. It's not in Clone Wars. This, you actually have to go back to the books.
In books.
Yes. So was it Thrawn? It was Thrawn Allegiance. Or was it Allegiance or?
Yeah, because the third one was Thrawn Treason. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's Allegiance. Yeah.
Yeah. Thrawn Allegiance, where he teams up with Anakin Skywalker during the Clone Wars when he's a member of the Chiss Ascendancy military. Then, of course, later again, when he teams up with Darth Vader, when he's a member of the Imperial Navy. So it's a fantastic book. Definitely recommend. If you have not read those books, the Thrawn Alliance and Thrawn Treason books, read them. They're fantastic. If you don't want to read them, get them on Audible. Fantastic. Definitely some fantastic work by the creator of Thrawn himself, Timothy Zahn. But I loved, I don't necessarily would say he changes. He did change his tactics to a certain extent, but it's because he realized who he was up against.
I have to say this, and I have it in the show notes here. It's a quote that Thrawn says, and I think he says it to Morgan Elsbeth. He says, "It is for the Empire, the security of our galaxy." And right then, I so wanted him to say, "It is for the Empire, for the security and order of our galaxy." then Tom Gross and I would be yelling, "Yes, for the order." And this is our whole, Christina knows in here, and the whole Halcyon thing. Tom Gross and I came super close to helping well, not really, but we like to believe it.
Well, we all know there's no order like the First Order.
That's right. And so, no, when he said that, I was channeling my inner Tom Gross and thinking about our trip on the Galactic Star Cruiser with Christina and Kendra. But anyways, I just had to throw that in, that I really love Thrawn saying that. So.
Oh, but what I really love actually is following on from that, which I didn't pick up the first time I watched it, but I only realized this morning, was when he said that for the Empire to Morgan Elsbeth, she just looks at him and kind of nods her head, but doesn't really agree. And then as she turns and walks away, she whispers, "For Dathomir."
Yes.
Which I just thought was like so cool, because they all have their own motivations. Nobody is working together for the same purpose. They all have their own motivations. So what is the Great Mother's motivations?
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, yeah. I mean, absolutely. I mean, there's no love lost between the witches of Dathomir and the outside world. I mean, you saw, if you watch Clone Wars, you know what happens to them but at the hands of
Count Dooku.
Dooku. Thank you. Carabas.
Dooku.
Count Dooku.
And General Grievous.
I kept wanting to say Gandalf, and I knew that wasn't right. So, but, yes, Grievous and Dooku, where they raised the planet and killed them all. So we and then of course we also see in the 6th season, the missing episodes, where she has the encounter with Windu, Mace Windu.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's when Windu and Jar Jar teamed up. You talk about the odd couple of Star Wars to team up Mace Windu and Jar. I'm sorry, I'm getting completely off topic. They had to literally have sat in a planning session and goes, who's the 2 people we could stick together that would just really freak people out?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean,
yeah. And I just love like most of the episode, Windu's utter disdain for Jar Jar.
Oh yeah. That's anyway. But it really, so there's no love lost there. So everybody has an angle. And we know that there's no love lost between the Jedi and the Night Sisters. So Thrawn, Baylan Skoll, I think, said it the best: the enemy of my enemy is my friend. When he was hunting down Sabine and Ezra, and they ended up using the Raiders. And I think Thrawn is almost following that same path, because he knows Ezra's out there. So there's the Jedi. So what's the enemy of the Jedi? Okay. The enemy of the Jedi right now is going to be these Night Sisters. They're going to keep them away so I can get done what needs to get done. And they're also going to help me communicate with somebody. So I think I don't know if there's something there that I really want to know. I can't wait to figure out what their angle is.
Yeah, absolutely.
So then, of course, we have the battle of all battles, the battle to stop the escape, when Ahsoka and Sabine and Ezra come riding in on the rodents of unusual size and attack the castle to stop the departure. And the outstanding attack begins with first them being bombarded by the Chimera, who is sitting right there above them. And as they ride across the open field and make it to the castle, then of course we have that outstanding scene which you mentioned earlier, David, with Ahsoka in the middle and Ezra and Sabine to the right and left, everybody having their lightsaber out. So, and then of course all the living night troopers come in, get cut down, and of course they get resurrected, and the fight ensues. I'm going to say something that's going to be very unpopular right now. Okay.
Oh
no.
And it's my only qualm, my only issue with the episode is when it goes from them barely escaping through the door of the castle, and then all of a sudden it cuts to all 3 of them standing there with their lightsabers out, and then just they just start doing all those moves. To me, that felt like the most awkward transition I have ever seen in Star Wars.
What do you mean? Like, because they they didn't see him jumping off the I don't know. They look like wolves to me, but
I think they're called howlers.
Howlers. There we go.
Yeah, I like calling them rodents of unusual size because they remind me of Princess Bride.
Yes.
But for me, it felt like a scene directly out of a Tarantino Kill Bill movie, where literally it just cuts immediately and there they are in action poses. It just felt awkward to me. It looked beautiful, but it felt awkward to me.
Well, I don't know what to say to you, Aaron. I mean, look, and a few minutes ago, it was Christina who brought up the scene where they're there and they're posing and they look totally
Love
PA.
it.
I
Yep.
love it. And so, Aaron, we're just going to have to do suspension of disbelief. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
We are not only in a galaxy far, far away, we're in another galaxy far, far away. Yeah. But no, the as they start to do this, Christina said it. I love the 3 different colors.
Mhm.
And I do think, and I don't know what Christina thinks about this, but Aaron, you and I thought, well, wait a minute, from an episode or 2 ago, it doesn't look like these troopers are like Marak, right? Or Merrick. Because like Ahsoka or Sabine would cut him and Ezra would force push them and they would just kind of get cut, but no green mist comes out. But I get a sense, do you both get a sense that these again they are troopers, but in this case, they do get reanimated. It's not that they're undead already and the mist comes out. It's more, it's like they were actual troopers, right? Is that what we're saying? All of them?
Yeah, they were living,
Okay.
breathing,
Yeah.
whatever they were, living, breathing creatures who were killed by Ahsoka, Ezra, and Sabine. Then the Night Sister, the Great Mothers got in their triangle, said their heebie-jeebie stuff, and next thing you know, bones are all creaking back in place, and they're standing up and going, brains.
I agree. Like, I think they were like living troopers before the battle, because there's that scene with Morgan, saying to Thrawn, that we were just discussing before, saying to Thrawn, these are the volunteers, and he's like, do they know, or he's something to that effect, and she's like, yes, they're aware. So I think that they'd had that discussion that they were going to use the resurrection jutsu. Oh, sorry, Naruto reference. Sorry, in my head, I always call the resurrection that the Night Sisters do the resurrection jutsu, like in Naruto. So it's just a little anime reference there. I think so. I think that they are living, they're killed by Ahsoka and the team, and then they're resurrected by the Night Sisters or the Great Mothers to continue to fight for the cause.
Okay.
Except those dark troopers that Ezra and Sabine fight, I kind of get the feeling they were already undead. So
yeah, I mean, I kind of got that feeling too, but we also the Death Troopers have always been a mystery, because supposedly from the time they were introduced in Rogue One, then we saw them again in Rebels. They were supposedly genetically modified and enhanced troopers.
Yeah, true, fair enough.
So
they are a bit of a mystery.
So it is a bit of a mystery of what's under those helmets. And some being that one of the helmets was broken, that was the closest we got to seeing what was under the helmet.
Zombies, apparently.
Yeah, I know. It looked kind of like a skull, didn't it?
Yeah.
But it's definitely. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was going to say, Christina beat me to the punch. Like, I was like, because the next thing I was going to ask you is about the 2 dark troopers up at the top. And I was like, wait, are they already kind of like Marak, kind of like the Night Sisters have reanimated some, like those 2 guys as well as Marak. But I think when I was looking at the Rogue One, I should pull it out right now, but weren't they called like the Decraniated or something like that?
Actually,
God, that's terrible.
I got to look out right now. So
the dark troopers, right? I think Pablo. I think that's part of the backstory, but I'm not. So it's kind of like. I think it could be either, right, Christina? It could be they're already genetically modified, or they are. I got a sense they were both the undead, because. They were shooting them and hitting them, and oh my gosh, they
were stronger than they should have been as well.
Yes, They were, oh man, that was so good. And I have to say this, right? Talking about as Aaron looks at that, what do you think, Christina, when Sabine, she's being held up by one of those guys, and I'm
Yes, I know. And I was just sitting there going, she's going to do it. She's going to do it. She's going to do it. And you get all of the auditory cues, because one of the things I really love about this is, like, in Rebels, you had that, the sound effects when they were going to use the Force. And the same has happened all through this. Whenever they're going to use the Force to, move something or do something, there is sound effects to help that visual storytelling. And so you get that sort of using the Force noise coming through, and it gets stronger, and the lightsaber, starts to move, and you just know that she's going to do it. And I just think it was just such a great callback to that Empire Strikes Back moment when Luke Skywalker's trying to get his, lightsaber out of the ice. It was just great.
Well, and to piggyback on yours, Christina, I was thinking about her being defeated by the teacup in the first couple episodes. She goes, "You win this round."
Yes.
That was great when Sabine did that. But then here, she definitely gets it. I was like really pumped for her, I'll tell you. But what did you learn, Aaron? Did you?
All right. Well, this, of course, is the Rogue One Ultimate Visual Guide, written by Pablo Hidalgo himself. And in it, talking about the Death Troopers, it says that the name of the Death Trooper stems from a rumored project from the Advanced Weapons Research Division designed to animate necrotic flesh. Though the troopers do not appear to be derived from the scheme, the use of the name gives them the macabre reputation among the Imperial ranks. And when it's talking about in the just a simple breakdown data file, it says that they are human with classified augmentations.
Oh.
So they're augments.
Definitely sounds like something they cooked up at Mount Tantus.
Yeah,
exactly. Oh, very good.
Very, very Christina.
Bravo indeed. Perfect. All right. So we are going to keep going. We're going to take another quick break. Then we're going to come back and we are going to discuss the latter half of the battle and the ending of the episode. So bear with us. One more break and we'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody. Aaron, David, and Christina here. We're discussing the final episode of Ahsoka entitled The Jedi, the Witch, and the Warlord. Sounds something straight out of C.S. Lewis, if I don't say so myself. I loved that movie. I love those books, by the way. Lion, Witch, and Wardrobe, fabulous. Chronicles of Narnia. Anyway, let's keep going. So we got the battle going on, and you, right before the break, mentioned the Death Trooper holding up a Sabine, and she's using the Force for the first time, actually getting that lightsaber to come to her. And of course, she goes all Ben Solo on it and shoots the lightsaber through its skull, and which was pretty cool. And of course, that leads to Ezra being able to kill his. And then, of course, they have to try to make the jump to the ship, because the Chimera is pulling away to make its escape. And so Ezra is like, I cannot make that jump. And Sabine's like, oh, yeah, you can. I'll push you.
I love that. Love that so much. It's such a Rebels moment, isn't it?
Oh, it is. It is.
It's
especially the scene when the two stormtroopers run up to the end of the hangar,
yes,
and they're looking down at him, and they're both just standing there looking up at him. It reminded me of them sitting on the satellite dish. I was just waiting on Ezra to start waving.
Yes, so good.
But when Sabine recommends, jump, use the Force to jump, and then I'll push you the rest of the way, Ezra looks at her like, are you insane? I've been gone long, but not that long. You haven't gotten that good, I don't think. But she proves him wrong. And
But he trusts her, which I love. I just love that minute. And he looks at her and he's like, okay.
Yeah, you could see him debating it, though.
Yeah, you could
see him truly debating it.
He ultimately chooses to trust her, which I loved.
Yes. She's never steered him wrong. Wrong. So he put his faith in Sabine one more time. He makes that jump, and he gets about halfway across and starts plummeting. And then, of course, Sabine does the push and throws him up, and he looks like he's going to make it, and he misses it and is hanging right below the deck, which was just another, again, perfect Ezra Sabine moment, because that's, again, something we would see in Rebels. And then he jumps up and takes out the troopers. And then that's, of course, when Ahsoka ends up making it to that level, and she is fighting not only the night troopers, the resurrected night troopers, but the fighting Morgan Elsbeth, the witch, the new incarnated witch, Morgan Elsbeth. And Sabine has to make a decision. And we mentioned this earlier. It looks like she takes off running to make the jump so Ezra can pull her up into the ship and escape. And honestly, I think that's what Ahsoka thought had happened, because we don't see her after that. And she gets surrounded by the troopers, and Morgan's taking her to task with her newfound powers, and basically tells her that you're too late. Your friends are dead, and you're going to die alone. And Sabine, that's when you hear Sabine like, yeah, she's not alone. And then fight breaks. Ahsoka smiled, and then she starts taking Morgan Elsbeth to task as Sabine starts taking out the night troopers with a lightsaber in one hand, a blaster in the other. Tell me that was not a Kanan Jarrus fight right there.
Absolutely. That was so cool.
That was Kanan to a T, and I loved seeing that. To me, it was just a nice nod to Kanan. As Sabine just fought her way through these dead resurrected night troopers, who again eventually don't actually die until Morgan gets killed and the magic is gone. And of course we have Ahsoka with that beautiful swipe, killing her in a disarming fashion, taking the sword and killing Morgan all at the same time. Perfect. Beautiful. So let's talk about that. David, how about you, bro? Talk to me about this final end of the battle here.
Well, I'm nervous the whole time. You said you were standing up, and I know Christina was watching it with Kendra, and I'm watching it by myself. And I'm just kind of like watching this, and I'm getting nervous because unlike a lot of these Star Wars series, I'm like, well, I know what's going to happen here. Like Obi-Wan, when I'm watching Obi-Wan last summer, I know I'm going to see him in episode 4, 5, and 6, Yeah. But with Ahsoka now, I don't know. We don't know what Dave Filoni is going to ultimately do. And so she's getting surrounded. And there's a real tension, there could be real cost here. I don't know that she's in the next, 6 Star Wars movies and stuff like that. So I'm like, man, this is not looking good. And so when you hear Sabine's voice and you see her enter the fray, just like you described, I was so pumped. And boy, it's just exciting action. And boy, for every bit of lightsaber stuff we did not see in Andor, we're getting it in just droves here, which I just love. And I just loved it. And then of course they go running, and Thrawn is raining down, what do you say, hellfire on this whole thing. And I like what Christina called it, the Night Sister Temple, and they jump off, and here's Huyang to the rescue. And then, you just see that place fall. And I just was so pumped, so impressed. And I don't know, what do you think, Christina? Did you make it through that, or how did you do?
Oh yeah, edge of my seat the whole time. You're nervous. You don't know what's going to happen. And then one of Ahsoka's lightsabers was destroyed by the sword of Talzin, and you're like, oh my god. And she's only got one now. But what I really loved was how once Sabine came to have Ahsoka's back, you could just see Ahsoka's attitude change, and she had some joy at that moment. She wasn't alone. She has her Padawan who has come back to help her, and she manages to disarm Morgan Elspeth and uses both of those blades to end her. And it was just spectacular. That whole action sequence, and I think it's, Rick Famuyiwa, he was responsible for directing some of the best action episodes in Mandalorian, and he has certainly not disappointed. His direction of these action sequences was superb, I think. I loved it.
Oh yeah, I loved it too. You're right. He did a fabulous job directing these scenes, and a lot of great action. And what I haven't heard anybody say yet, and you mentioned it, David, but when they jump off and all of a sudden they come back up standing on the shuttle, again, another Rebels move. Because we see that happen a couple times in Rebels, most notably when in that pilot, in that first episode, when they are standing on board the Ghost as it comes back up, and it knocks Callus off the bridge, and he's hanging down below, and it was hilarious, because then you got Steve Bloom voicing a stormtrooper. He's like, "First time you seen a Jedi, sir?" Then he gets kicked to his death.
I know, the casual stormtrooper murder.
Oh yeah. Just then Callus just kicks him, and he goes falling to his death. But fabulous scene. Then they go speeding off to try to catch up with the Chimera so they can make their escape too. And this is, to me, Thrawn's finest moment in this episode, because he opens up communications with Ahsoka, and he is again in his utmost Thrawnness at that point, where he talks about how he wishes he could have met her face to face, but now he never will, and that he knew how to beat her because he knew her master, and he knew she would make the same decision, and wonders if she would follow the same path. Then he makes the ultimate statement: "Isn't this where a Ronin like you needs to be?" Then ends it with, "Today the victory is mine." And then they jump off into hyperspace. And I'm sitting there going, oh my gosh. Oh, fantastic speech by Thrawn.
Yeah.
And want to get y'all's opinion on that. Talk to me about Thrawn and Ahsoka's interaction there. Christina, we'll start with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Exactly everything that you just said. Like it was just it's like the ultimate villain speech, and just that parting shot. But I think he underestimates Ahsoka. I think he thinks he knows more than he does, because, she's gone through the world between worlds. She's faced Anakin. She's come to terms with Anakin as Vader and Vader as Anakin, and she's come through it stronger. And I don't think she blames herself anymore for what Anakin became. So Thrawn doesn't realize that. So I think he's actually thinking he's given her a big burn, but I think actually she'll process that the way it's meant to be processed. She won't let that affect her.
David?
Well, this is where I'm going to channel my inner Aaron Harris at the music. Right? It's just Kevin Kiner is just pulling on it, and there's tension, and I was like, are they going to really catch up? How are they going to do this? And I love how Christina said that. It's what do they call it? The monologuing, right? The bad guy monologue, right? You got to do that. You got to do that. The last little thing. But I agree with Christina that he doesn't know everything about Ahsoka, and I think he's thinking that he does. But that I took that from that scene too, that he doesn't. And I just thought the visuals, that's where I'm talking about the cinematic. When you see, like, I don't know, Filoni made the decision to, that T6 Jedi shuttle, he shows it at such a long distance. And really, I think trying to give you this sense of depth as you see that ship that Ahsoka and Sabine and Huyang are on is shooting through the boneyards, or kind of avoiding all that and shooting out and trying to catch up to the Eye of Sion and the Chimera. I mean, just the visuals are just, this is movie stuff. It's just incredible. And like I said, I can't imagine the money spent to make it look like it did. And then when it shoots off, obviously reminded me of an earlier episode where Hera gets caught in that, in the ghost. And yeah, I like how this hyperspace looks a bit different, and the same thing with the Purrgil, meaning it's a much more powerful, high octane type of hyperspace than the typical mottled, M-O-T-T, right? Kind of, blue, hyperspace, because they're making such massive jumps. It's this different kind of color. I really like that. But the visuals, the tension, and just seeing, Ahsoka's face and Sabine's at the end there was like, oh man, they didn't make it. And, but it quickly turns when they get back down to the planet. And I do like how Filoni brings us back up there. So I don't know if I should let you say, right. I needed that. I needed something at the end, but yeah, I don't should we jump into that?
Yeah, that's where we were going next, was to the closing scenes of the episode, because we do get final scenes with each one of our characters from the show, except for Morgan, because she's dead. But
wow, just throw that in there.
Yeah,
she is.
It's true.
Did you want her final? If you wanted, you could have thrown a final scene of her pushing up some daisies. But just trying to tell it like it is. But we see Sabine back with Ahsoka back with the naughties. And of course, that's where they have taken up shop and are going to be hanging out. And it starts off with them arriving there to be with them. Then it cuts, of course, to I forget the order it does it, but we end up seeing Shin Hati for the first time in this episode as she arrives where the bandits are, and ignites her lightsaber and holds it up over her head, almost like she's claiming leadership. So it'd be interesting to see where her story leads. Then, of course, we see probably my the other scene that made me cry.
Yes.
We see the shuttle that Balon and Shin arrived in at the very first episode, flying, being escorted by two A-Wings into Home One. And we see Hera and Chopper and a whole bunch of security guards gathered around it as it lands, and the ramp opens, and out walks one of Thrawn's night troopers. And of course, all the guns come up on it, and it quickly raises its hands up in the air and keeps coming forward a little bit. And all of a sudden, Chopper just starts squawking and rolling around up past Hera, goes up to it, rolls around the trooper, and almost makes a squawk. If you listen to the beeps, it sounded to me like Chopper was saying, is it really you?
Yeah, that's what Kendra and I thought too.
And
Is it? Yeah.
is it you? Is it really
Is
you?
it you? Yeah.
And at which point the trooper lays his hand on Chopper's dome, then removes the helmet, and it's Ezra. And he just stares at Hera. Hera lowers her blaster and goes, Ezra? And then, like a school kid that thought he's in trouble, he just goes, hi, Hera. I'm home. Like he's a runaway who has finally gotten home and his mother's about to chew him out. And I just, I have waited for that moment forever. And to finally see Hera and Ezra back together. Oh, I'm tearing up talking about it. Y'all take it away. Somebody, I don't care.
You go, Christina.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, I think, sort of going back to the start where of Aaron's little spiel there, where we have Ahsoka and Sabine landing back down on the planet, Peridia. And I think, we get the idea when that something big is going to be yet to happen on this planet, when Ahsoka looks over to that rock and she sees Morai, and Morai looks at her and chirps and then flies away. So already you're drawn back to the Mortis gods, and you're thinking, that's Morai, hang on. And so then, you kind of get to know where Shin is. So she's with her faction. So she's going to put her forces in together with those bandits. We get the answer of where did Balin go? What's his ultimate end game? When you get that amazing visual of him standing on an outstretched arm, and then the camera kind of pans back and you see the father. You see the Mortis gods, you see the father, you see the son. The body of the daughter is next to the father on the other side, but the daughter's head is not there. So you don't get to see the daughter's head, but you see the father and the son. And it's like, oh my gosh, they're going there, the Mortis gods. But then as you get that visual and you see Balin, who I thought looked very much like the father in that shot, just saying. But that shot kind of sort of pans out, and then the perspective changes so that you're looking out towards where Balin is looking, and you see a small glimmer off in the distance in the same direction that the father is pointing. So you're being told that there is something else yet to happen on this planet. And with the Mortis gods there, it's something that is important, and something important in the Force. And I just loved that. It's just like left so much open, so many more questions. And then, we go back to our own galaxy far, far away, where the Chimera and that, the Eye of Sion pull up in front of Dathomir. That just looked spectacular. The Night Sisters coming home, all the questions about what is in those cargo containers that are suspiciously body-sized. No speculation. And then yes, as you said, taking that shuttle with Ezra pulling up into, I think they were on home one by that stage.
Yes.
And then Ezra slowly walking out, and Chopper, he immediately knows this isn't somebody to be afraid of. He knows it's Ezra. He knows it. He trundles out from behind them and goes up to him. And then you have that moment, like you said, Aaron, where Ezra puts his hand on Chopper's head. And it's just such a familiar gesture that we've seen him do with Chopper over 4 years of Rebels storytelling. And made me cry. Just that made me cry, let alone when he and Hera see each other again for the first time in so long. So emotional. So much told just with the visual storytelling, just with the music. So much emotion portrayed. Hera doesn't even say anything really. She just says Ezra. And that one word is enough to convey her joy, her trepidation, her like unwillingness to believe the evidence of her own eyes that he is right there in front of her finally.
Yeah. Well said. Well said.
You know, the only thing I would add, because Christina summarized it so well, and the only thing is two things. One, when Ezra takes his helmet off and he says, "Hi, Hera," I thought it's funny. I thought he might say, "Hi, Mom," that I'll start tearing up right now, but.
Oh, I know, but see, that would have confused like non-Rebels viewers, I think.
Yeah.
So
exactly. For me, I would have been bawling.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
because I think of her as Space Mom and
absolutely.
right. In the second viewing, again, I picked up on so much, and when they showed Filoni shot it, where Hera's to the left, Ezra's to the right, and then I see the ghost behind them. And I'm like, I'm thinking about one of the first times they're talking to each other on the ramp of the ghost, and it's down, and right, and she talks to him about having hope, and I started thinking about that, and of course that'll make me cry even more.
Yeah.
So anyways, Filoni, oh my gosh, so he wants me to cry, and he is successful. The other thing I was going to say again. Just to piggyback off Christina, is when I think about Ray Stevenson, we didn't know after the episode 7, like, did Filoni, again, not knowing what would happen to Ray, we didn't know how it would end. Would he die in battle, fighting, Ahsoka or whatever, but he's alive there at the end. And I guess for me, the only thing I would just ask both of you is, are they going to recast this role? What do you guys think?
That's why I was saving Baylan Skoll for last, because there's so much. There's so much with this character. He quickly escalated to be a fan favorite, and you're right. We don't know what's going to happen. And that final scene with him standing on the precipice, the father statue staring off, thinking, just knowing that's the last time we get to see Ray Stevens as Baylan Skoll. Not Ray Stevens, Ray Stevenson, sorry. Ray Stevens is a singer. But it's hard to not get emotional during that point and speculate as to what they're going to do. I think there's more story to be told. And given technology more, it could go any way at that point. So I'm not sure where to lead at that. I would, either way, I would like to see them continue the story of Baylan Skoll. It would just be hard to do it without Ray Stevenson.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
Yeah, no, I agree. He made such an impact. He was such a big presence. He had so much gravitas that it would be hard to recast him, I think.
Yeah, it definitely would be hard to recast him. So then, of course, the very end, of course, we see Ahsoka as Sabine walks away. Ahsoka standing there, hopeful look on her face, and as she turns and walk away, the camera pulls back to reveal the Force ghost of Anakin Skywalker.
I know, how beautiful was that?
Absolutely gorgeous. And it again leads to a whole manner of speculation as to what's next, and it's hard not to speculate, but man, just ending it the way they did, we truly do hope for more to come.
Oh, absolutely. And the one thing I love about that moment is that for the first time ever, I'm actually glad that George Lucas changed the ending of Return of the Jedi and had Hayden Christensen be the Force Ghost of Anakin Skywalker.
Oh,
It matches the kid. It does. I can honestly say I agree with you on that. It makes a world of difference telling these stories now. So,
Yep.
All right.
So maybe we should just all trust George Lucas when he does something.
I've never had any doubt in the man. So, all right. Well, I know we're running out of time, so we are going to go ahead and do our final reactions and get everything taken care of. David, take the floor. Go ahead and do your final reactions, my friend.
Okay. I didn't know if we want to do Christina real quick because I know she's got to jump. Do you want to go first, Christina, or you want me? You tell me.
No, I'll go first if that's okay. Just because
I
have to head off to work soon, sadly. Okay. I know. So my final reaction to this whole series, it was amazing. It was better than I could have ever hoped for. And I think, I can't remember if it was you. I think it was you, David, or it might have been you, Aaron. But at the start of the show, you're saying you didn't know if it was, the beer goggles, you just love it, or if it was actually just really good story. I think it's really good story. Yes. I don't think it's just that we want to love it, therefore we will. I think that if this is some of the best Star Wars storytelling that we have had in live action since the prequels. It's amazing. And I have loved every moment of this journey. And what I've loved even more is being able to discuss it with you guys.
Absolutely has made a world of difference there. So, and we know you got to go, and we don't want to keep you from what you need to do, but we at least want to say, before you have to jump off, then we'll wrap everything up. Thank you for joining us this season. We've had you on a couple times, so it's been well worth it, and you have been truly welcome, and we have loved the insight you've added to our discussions.
Oh, thank you so much. I have absolutely loved coming on to talk Star Wars with both of you. And thank you so much for having me. And hopefully you'll have me again in sometime in the future.
Oh, absolutely. I can guarantee we will. Definitely will happen. So bear with us just a moment, folks. We're going to take one more hold. We will be right back. Welcome back, everybody. Aaron and David here now. Christina had to leave. We definitely appreciate her joining us tonight. It's been a blast having her on with us for these episodes. Awesome time. Let's finish our final reactions. David, take the floor.
Yeah, I was trying to think, what to say in final reactions because, there's so much to praise. It's just an incredible 8-part series, and here's what immediately struck me, and it was earlier today that it hit me, that everything gets hyped now. Everything's hyped. Every sporting event, every UFC battle, in the octagon, basketball, the NBA finals, Stanley Cup finals, Super Bowls, everything's the game of the century, and stuff like this. And again, most things don't live up to the hype. They don't. But I'll tell you this 8-part series absolutely lived up to the hype. Dave Filoni delivered, and that is not easy. It's not. Ask people if it's easy to make Star Wars. It is really difficult. I think, with Andor, Tony Gilroy and that whole crew, I think they really delivered. And with this series, Dave Filoni delivered. Again, not easy. Try doing it. Look at the sequel trilogy. It was tough for JJ and Rian Johnson and JJ again. It's tough. Even, remember I've mentioned this before, the behind the scenes documentary for The Rise of Skywalker, and they show JJ there and they pan over to him. He goes, I dodged the bullet the first time, meaning The Force Awakens. I can't believe I'm back doing this. I mean, he knows it. It's not easy to do. And Filoni did this and it wrote this whole thing. And I am just so impressed. Again, I mentioned this a little bit in my initial reactions. I'm really, hoping for a second season. I could see that happening, but also, if depending on how things go, Aaron and I were talking about this a bit behind the scenes with Greg McLaughlin from the Rebel Base Card podcast, how financially, how Disney Plus is doing, and will Bob Iger spend the money on a second season, because again, you're going to have to spend a lot of money to make it as good or better. So maybe this does go directly into a Mandoverse movie, and I'm fine with that too. Either way, I just so much want more of these characters. We just mentioned it before with Anakin there watching out over Sabine and Ahsoka, and then something going on with Mortis there, perhaps. The world between worlds. I mean, that's another thing I was going to mention just briefly. How can you talk briefly? I mean, Filoni literally did it. He went world between worlds and Mortis gods in this series, and you're like, holy crow. So impressive, just most impressive. And so again, hats off to Dave Filoni. Aaron has been mentioning, Dave Filoni for president, or any title. We say Emperor of the Universe, you name it. I agree. And so just again, kudos to you, Dave Filoni, and the whole crew. This was unbelievable. I'm going to be going back and watching these. Even Aaron and I have talked about it, coming back to these episodes and digging in deeper, and that'll be a lot of fun as well. But just again, kudos to this whole series.
Oh, absolutely. Definitely kudos as well. For me, I got to say, this has been the ride of a lifetime. I mean, this has just been incredible to be a part of and to watch. We talked about it earlier. I've been asking myself, do I love this show because Rebels or because it's a good story? And like I said earlier, yes, it's both. It's a well-written and compelling story with fantastic new characters, but yet it has the appeal of my love of Rebels as well. And it's hard not to talk about the whole series as a whole, but try to limit myself to just this episode. So I'm going to try to do that in these final reactions. To me, this was the perfect ending of a show. I knew it was going to leave us with some kind of cliffhanger. I knew not because I had inside knowledge, just because my gut was telling me it was going to end us with a cliffhanger. It was going to end us with our heroes trapped on Peridia. And I knew there were going to be a lot of unanswered questions because it is the Filoni way. And he did not disappoint us. He left us with more questions than we did answers, but the answers we got were so emotionally impactful. It made you, it's not even, I don't even want to go down that road again, but Kevin Kiner music, perfect. It was spectacular. I have so much I want to keep saying, but time is not our friend. I know I'm quieting down. Chill out, Chop. But we're going to wrap things up here. And we want to hear from y'all. Let us know what y'all think of the final part of Ahsoka and about the series as a whole, now that the series has come to an end. We don't know. I mean, they initially said it was a series finale, but then they changed it to season finale. So we don't know quite what's coming, but we want to hear from your thoughts on it. You can hit us up on social media on Facebook or Twitter at SW Reactions Pod, or on Instagram, Threads, Pinterest, or of course Tumblr at SW Reactions. Let us know what you thought. We'd love to hear from you, or you can leave a voicemail via SpeakPipe at speakpipe.com/Star Wars Reactions, or email us swreactions@gmail.com. And of course you can email us there, just like our good friend. Oh my gosh, I just blanked on his name. Oh, good Lord. I am having a Carabas moment. I apologize. I'm trying to get the email pulled up here. Carabas. Daniel Contreras. I'm sorry, buddy. It's just one of those days, my friend. But he sent us in something that about the series, and we'll read that real quick. And he goes, "Hey, Aaron and David, now that the first season of Ahsoka is over, I wanted to give you my thoughts on the show as a whole, as well as some things that caught my attention. I really enjoyed the show overall. I love living in an age where it doesn't take 2 or 3 years to get new Star Wars on screen. We live in an age of abundance. Yes, we do. We are blessed. It was nice to see how so many animated characters translate into live action. I wondered how well that would happen, and overall, I came away very happy. Growing up reading the Narnia books, I loved the name of the final episode. I actually laughed out loud. Hera, Jason, and Chopper are probably the best examples we've seen in Star Wars of a healthy family dynamic. Watching them together made me realize how rare that actually is in Star Wars. The only other one that I came in mind are the Nabari family on Naboo that we got a glimpse of in Episode 2's deleted scenes. Aside from Narnia, I am also a big fan of the 80s cartoon Robotech. I've heard Dave Filoni mention he is also a fan, and I think he threw some Robotech Easter eggs in the show. When Balon's referred to the temple map on Cetos as a reflex point, that was also the location on Earth from which the alien Invid species departed to other dimensions in the show's finale. They even looked a bit similar, and he actually did attach a photo to the email. I'll send it to you, David. Actually, it's pretty spot on. I think he's onto something. I think Daniel's onto something there.
Nice.
I think you guys mentioned this on a recent episode, but if Hera's trial scene took place on Coruscant, does that mean that it remains the capital of the New Republic? I thought in Universe Story that the New Republic government was no longer on Coruscant and moved around from planet to planet and eventually locating on Hosnian Prime at the time of The Force Awakens, which is true. I think we did agree that we thought it was on Coruscant because it started on Coruscant, then moved around before settling on Hosnian.
Well, yeah, and you and I briefly talked, and I'm glad Daniel brought this up because I've been going back in my mind and thinking about going through the Chuck Wendig Aftermath series because I believe in that, and I think I might have mentioned it. I remember at one point the capital is moved to Chandrila, and I'm really tempted. I've read the books. I have the physical books. I'm tempted to do Audible because Aaron and I have been doing that with a lot of stuff, and just kind of go back through those because those are again after, Endor, and I think the Battle of Jakku. So he's right. Daniel's right, and I just can't remember how many times it does move, before we see Hosnian Prime there in Force Awakens. But this series has motivated me, Aaron. I want to go back. There's a number of Clone Wars episodes, Rebels episodes, books. We mentioned some of the Thrawn books. There's a lot I want to go back through, but I would have to go through those to fully know it. You know what I'm saying, Aaron? I'd need to do my homework on how many different capitals there was. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll have to go back and check that out.
Yeah. Did he have any more? Daniel?
Oh, he's got more.
Cool.
We got more. He continues. Something I wished for was greater alienness to the new galaxy. This was a chance to really go far out there, even if it was just to a single planet. A few times in the old EU ventured beyond the Star Wars galaxy, and it made an effort to point out the weirdness of what lie beyond. It didn't have to look like all that different. Star Wars has done glowy mushroom planets already, after all, but the show could have added a sense of mystery, dread, and isolation by playing up some of the psychological aspects, being further than anyone else had ever gone. Does biology and physics even exist in the same way so far away? Instead, we got grassy hills, mass nomadic tribes, and wolves, and there was a chance for so much more. One disappointment I had was this felt more like Rebel Season 5 than a show that earned the title Ahsoka. I don't mind all the other characters appearing in the series, but I don't think it fully earned the title character's name as its official title. How does Thrawn's story fit in with the presence of Wayland and Mount Tantus, two others on-era plot points which we got in the latest season of The Bad Batch? It's a good question. I love that Lucasfilm used practical models for several scenes of Ahsoka's starship. I'm a very big fan of practical models over CGI, and I'm glad to see that tradition continues with the team at Lucasfilm. I think it was episode 6, Far, Far Away, that had some of over-the-top musical moments. There were 4 or 5 scenes that ended in dun, 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 drowning out the other audio at that moment. I'm all for dramatic moments, and such boisterous, this is important music felt totally unnecessary and even diminished the moment after third or fourth time hearing it in a single episode. Another minor quibble is with the writing, or rather how it was delivered. Too often the scenes felt like Actor 1 says their line, Actor 2, short pause, says their line, Actor 3, short pause, says their line. It didn't flow very well. It didn't flow very well, if that makes sense. Almost like 2 actors filmed their scenes separately, and then the footage got spliced together and was most evident in the Ahsoka Sabine scenes, but not limited to them. I'm guessing it was deliberate and was the style of the directors were going for, but it just felt stilted and unnatural to me. In the same episode, Baylan sends Shin off to take her place in the coming Empire, but at the end of the season, we see her left behind on the planet. The witches were cool, and I'm glad they were introduced, but any thoughts on why they deferred so much to Thrawn, bowing to him on numerous occasions and wanting to see his plans executed? They just seemed a bit subservient. This is their world, and he was an unexpected visitor. I would have thought he would have been the one who would have deferred to their power and authority. The only thing I could come up with is they were trapped on the planet, and Thrawn offered them a way to finally join their would-be sisters on Dathomir and the rest of the galaxy. This, along with the Coruscant scenes we got to see in Mando 3, really show us that the New Republic was not happily ever after ending to the original trilogy. There was a lot of rebuilding, unethical behavior, and jockeying for power going on. It's more of a realistic portrayal than a fairy tale ending. It also keeps the galaxy messy for future storytelling. We get a mirror of our own world, showing us the need for constant vigilance to keep the world messy. The ending of this show reminds me a bit of the ending of Christopher Nolan's film Interstellar. Haven't seen that movie. I'll have to take your word for it. He also says, I just lost my spot. He also says he would like to have seen cameos from Ashley Eckstein, maybe Taylor Gray, Tia Sircar, Vanessa Marshall, either as officers on the Mon Calamari cruisers, members of the background on Hera's trial, or even among the Twi'lek soldiers seen in the Ahsoka flashbacks. Would have been cool. Finally, were there any scenes filmed outside in this show? I can't think of any off the top of my head. I think it's the first live action Disney show, Disney Plus, or I think that's a first for a Disney Plus show. Let me know if I forgot anything. It's a long list for sure, and I'm sure I could think of even more to share, but that's what I remember as of now. Glad we got such a fun show, and I believe it's setting stuff up for a ton of stuff for later projects. Thanks again for your reviews and the positivity you bring to every episode of Star Wars Reactions. Daniel.
Wow. Awesome email. Holy mackerel. He's on it, man.
Mm-hmm.
I was trying to keep track of several things that I wanted to comment on. One is his comment, Aaron, about Peridia and just kind of being nomadic in grassy lands. You know, I was thinking as you were reading that, what Daniel said, I was thinking, well, remember a few minutes ago, I was talking about the scene where, you know, the T6 Jedi shuttle is shooting up out of the Peridia's atmosphere and past that boneyard, which makes it look like Saturn, you know, the rings of Saturn. It's shooting up after, you know, the Chimera, which is hooked in the Eye of Sion. And I'm thinking to myself, I think that's where the money was spent, and on the lightsabers and the battles with the stormtroopers, and just had to make those decisions on what they spend the money on. Now, and here's something I was thinking about, Aaron, too. When Daniel was mentioning, you know, like he mentioned a few of the planets, I thought about Felucia and some of the other pretty far out there planets we saw in Clone Wars and stuff. But I thought to myself, you know, we see Balin on the arm of the Mortis god, the Father, pointing at that light over there. And you know, Christina was mentioning, I could see Dave Filoni saying, well, if I get a season 2 or the movie, there's where a bunch of money is going to be spent, and really feeding into what Daniel said, and having it be an otherworldly, you know, is it going to be a portal to Mortis, the world between worlds? Who knows? But it could be exactly what Daniel's asking for. When he mentioned cameos, absolutely agree with that. Wish that would have happened. And you know what he got me to think about, Aaron? No Zeb. Oh man. And of course that was probably a money decision too, right? You know, to animate him there. But I thought we might see him. What else was Daniel saying? Yeah, I mean, he is such a great review, and hopefully I hit on a few of the things that he had mentioned. I don't know. Did you have any thoughts on a few of those things, or?
Well, first off, it was a tremendous email. Fantastic. I thank you so much, Daniel, for sending that in. You know, there was there was several things in here. The practical effects, I loved that. That was awesome. As for the witches and why the mother seemed to be subservient to Thrawn, I think he hit the hammer or the nail on the head with the fact that I think they were trapped there and they needed an escape. And that was their only way to escape.
Yeah.
So I definitely agree with that for sure. I'm scrolling back up through the email. There's just so much awesomeness in this show. It's not even funny. You know, I will say, I know he said he was felt a little disappointed. It felt more like Rebels 5 than Ahsoka. Definitely respect that. I didn't have that opinion. Of course, I love Rebels, so it didn't. I don't know. I just didn't feel that way. I know other people did. That's why I love Star Wars. We can all have our own opinions and still love what we do, what we're watching. So, but other than that, I mean, I agree with most of everything else he said. So I think it would have been really cool to have cameos with Tia and Vanessa and Ashley and all of them. But I definitely can understand why it didn't happen, but you know, it is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I'm so glad he emailed in. That was awesome.
It truly was. So
yeah, he's really got a lot of good points.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, we got to wrap things up. We're running out of time here, David. I understand you got a psychology corner for us.
Well, I do. I've got a doozy because what I thought I would do is summarize, take a little bit from each of the previous psychology corners for this season of Ahsoka. So I've done a new one each time Aaron and I recorded. And again, the overall theme has been about the meaning of life. And so let me go through this. People, just bear with me, and it might serve as a nice summary. If you maybe you have listened to the previous psychology corners. If you haven't, you get them all right here in a shortened version. So, all right, here we go. All right, deep breath, Aaron. Whew, okay. So I started with the question, all right, that I've asked most of my clients over the years, and that's the question: why were you born? I started off with that. I then went over the critical importance of thinking through this issue, even if we don't face a life-threatening diagnosis, or if our partner dies, or if we lose a partner or spouse, if we lose parents or a child. I talked about how our circumstances can fuel our questioning, which is healthy. However, I just don't want our listeners to have something life-changing to get them thinking about the meaning of life. Okay. And so I kind of went over some of that. Then I jumped into 3 possible sources of meaning from some of the biggest names in psychiatry and psychology. I mentioned Dr. Sigmund Freud, Dr. Freud, who said the meaning of life is to seek pleasure. Another one is Dr. Alfred Adler. He thought it was to seek power. And Dr. Viktor Frankl didn't agree with either of those. And he thought that the greatest task of us humans is to find meaning in our lives. I then followed that up with another psychology corner where I talked a bit about the specifics of what Frankel's saying, and meaning that he looked at 3 possible sources of meaning: work, doing something or creating something significant; love, which is encountering someone, caring for someone. The third one was courage during difficult times, and in his book Man's Search for Meaning, he does talk about that. I then went over something that Rabbi Harold Kushner said regarding Frankl. And he says, Frankel's most enduring insight, one that I've called on often in my own life and in the countless counseling situations, is that forces beyond your control can take away everything you possess except one thing: your freedom to choose how you will respond to the situation. You cannot control what happens to you in your life, but you can always control what you will feel and do about what happens to you. And I said that I wanted to share this insight for a couple of reasons. One of the reasons is because in that quote by Rabbi Harold Kushner, it leads perfectly into another psychology corner I did on 5 possible sources of meaning. And those are job. Is it your job? Is it a spouse or partner, children, finances, and health? And again, I tied in Kushner's statement with these 5 possible sources of meaning because, what did I mention? Forces beyond your control can take away everything you possess. And guess what? All 5 of those possible sources of meaning can go away. I did, kind of to piggyback on that, I followed up by asking some questions. I asked, first question, what if someone loses all 5 of these purposes? Again, that's why I mentioned Kushner's quote. It's a tough one to hear. When someone says you can't control what happens to you in your life, a lot of us think we have it. It's what we say in psychology and psychiatry is the illusion of control. But that's one of the first questions I asked in that particular psychology corner. A second question I asked is, what if someone never had any of these 5 purposes in their life? Right? I mentioned that I have clients who never had health, They never could get a job because they weren't strong enough to do it. So you don't have finances, couldn't attract a spouse, and didn't have children. All 5 never had them. So again, wanted our listeners to think about that. And then a third question I had was, what if someone's under 20 years old or above 65 years old and they don't have a spouse or a job, right? People under 20, maybe just doing school, right, and aren't married, right? Don't deal with that. Same thing with a lot of my clients over 65. I talk to people every day, did it today, talking to people who have lost their spouse. And guess what? They're retired. They're not doing a job anymore. So did they lose their purpose, right? I did end up saying that ultimately, my view here to kind of wrap this whole thing up and what is the meaning of life is this. My view is that you, our listeners, your loved ones and friends are purposeful and meaningful, whether they have a job or not, whether they have a spouse or partner or not, whether they have children or not, whether they have money or not, and whether they're healthy or not. That's not the world's view, by the way. That is, I'm presenting the opposite of the world here to you people, and I love being able to say it. Now, here's, I'll share this. Now, again, I'm very respectful, and I've said this before in our previous Psychology Corners, not just for this series, but over the last several years. The people listening here have a brain. You can agree, you can disagree, and I respect that. And same thing here. I'm just going to present to you what I think the meaning of life is, what the purpose of life is, and here's what I think it is. My view is that the purpose of people's lives is to love God and love others. Okay? Unlike the 5 purposes I mentioned before, job, spouse, children, health, finances, this purpose can never be taken from you. It can't. And I've talked to clients about this. All the other 5 are gone, but they still love God and love others. Now, I'll say this. If you don't believe in a higher power in any kind of form, I'd say this. I still believe the purpose of your life is to love and help others, right? Don't be a taker. Be someone who gives and helps others, okay? That's a big thing. And really, that really coincides with what Frankel mentioned. Out of his 3, loving others, I want to encourage that. And listeners to this show have really heard Aaron say this over the years. Aaron, after we do the dad joke of the week, Aaron is very encouraging, asks people to be nice, do something kind for others, and so on and so forth. Aaron's always said that way before I talked about, meaning and purpose. And so that's at the core of him as well. Aaron is someone who loves others. I know he loves God, he loves others. I love God, I love others. But if you don't believe in that higher power, guess what? Aaron and I still love you. And Aaron and I are going to still continue to love others and help other people. So hopefully this will be encouraging, to you. Hopefully these Psychology Corners have gotten our listeners to think about the deepest and most important aspects of their lives. And again, I hope it does encourage our listeners to love and help others and to be givers and not like all the takers on this planet. So there you go, Aaron.
Very good. Very good. And of course, if somebody wants to talk to you about your Psychology Corner or about Star Wars in general, what's the best way for them to do that?
Absolutely. It is the best way is Twitter X. That is at David_Modders, MODDERS. And let's see, the other one. Oh, Instagram. Just look up my name and you can find me there. And also you can just email the show. And we'll, Aaron would get that over to me as well because he gets those. So, yeah. So those are the ways, buddy.
Very good. Very good. And of course, if you do want to talk Star Wars with me, the best way to do that is on X, the app formerly known as Twitter, at TARS121079, or of course through any of the show social Carabast show social media or accounts. I'll get those as well. Would love to talk Star Wars with you. Well, my friend, are you ready?
Oh, I'm ready.
We got it tonight, my friend. Here we go. It's time for the Star Wars dad joke of the week. Are you sure you're ready?
I think so. I'm getting nervous.
Think so? You sure? Positive.
I'm sure. Positive.
Okay. Think so?
Think so.
Think so? Okay. What do you call a nervous Jedi?
Oh boy. I don't know. What do you call a nervous Jedi?
Anakin Skywalker.
Anakin? Like
Anakin Skywalker.
I have to tell you something.
Yeah.
You know how Liberty shared the what do you get when you combine fruit and Star Wars? Bananakin Skywalker. Yeah. I shared that with a bunch of my fellow coworkers yesterday at a meeting, and they loved it. So kudos to Liberty, and now I've got to share this one with them too. But they'll be like, "Really, that close, Dave?" Yes. It's a dad joke. Yes.
It's dad joke. Get over it.
Yes.
Perfect. Well, David, this has been fun, my friend.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I'm so glad we got through the series. And we're able to cover it. Had Christina on, had Greg McLaughlin for one. So it was just a real success. And I'm so again thankful that I could record it all with you, buddy.
Absolutely. It has been so much fun. And thank you again, Christina, for joining us for this. Hate it you had to rush off, but we definitely understand. Need to get to work. So thank you, everybody, for listening in and joining us. Make sure you're with us next week when we celebrate the 5th anniversary of Star Wars Star Wars Resistance. I was like, Star Wars Reactions. I'm like, wait, we're not 5 yet. But 5-year anniversary of Star Wars Resistance. We're going to have some fun reliving some moments from that show. It's going to be a blast. So if you do have some thoughts about the Resistance, which was a underappreciated show, definitely send in your thoughts on any of our social medias or on SpeakPipe. But till then, my friends, take care of each other. Be nice. Do something awesome for somebody this week. Just make somebody's day a whole lot brighter. You'll get rich rewards from it. Trust me. Remember, this is your place for elegant discussion for a more civilized age.
If you'd like to share your thoughts, you can email us at show@starwarsreactions.com for our show notes and the latest news from the Star Wars universe. Visit our website at www.starwarsreactions.com. You can also follow us on Twitter at SWReactionsPod or on Facebook at Star Wars Reactions. If you enjoy our show, please leave a review on iTunes. This podcast is not endorsed by the Walt Disney Company or by Lucasfilm Limited. It's intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. The official Star Wars website can be found at www.starwars.com. Star Wars. All names, sounds, and any other Star Wars related items are registered trademarks and or copyrights of Disney and the respective trademark and copyright holders. All original content of this podcast is the intellectual property of Star Wars Reactions unless otherwise indicated. Star Wars Reactions. Elegant discussion for a more civilized age.